Today is the 10th of August and we are having these horrendous temperatures, 37 degrees centigrade, and you can see the sun is blazing, the trees are getting burnt. I'm wearing my Panama hat, covering my arms with these old white shirts, not wearing a Hawaiian shirt. So today I'm going to give you some water saving tips for bonsai. Very topical tips, and I hope you will learn something from it. So let me take you around the nursery and show you what I'm doing. The first tip I would give you is to grow your plants in the shade. We have a large nursery. Our nursery covers nearly 8 acres if you include the greenhouses, and we have extensive growing fields. So we can't cover our growing fields with shade, even though the plants are in flower pots. But apparently shade is a very useful medium. We have this shade structure, and then we have another shade structure, which is a shade tunnel, which is covered with a green shade netting like that. In fact, we are going to cover the other bare tunnel with shade netting as well, because we find it is more useful. So shade netting has the benefit of preventing the plants getting scorched so badly. Our main greenhouse, what I call our hospital, has this white polycarbonate, and because the roof is white, it does reflect a lot of the sun and it doesn't get so hot. So although it's a greenhouse, it is relatively cool in here. Now, why does shade act in the way it does? Apparently, by having plants grow in shade, what it does is that it makes the plant less reliant on the sun for photosynthesis. And as you know, the photosynthesis process, the sun acts through the leaves and makes it produce food and draw water. By growing them in shade, the photosynthesis process is slowed down, and therefore it makes less demand on the root system to draw up water. So this is the theory behind it. And if you see the plants which are growing in shade, they certainly grow much better. They don't get burnt so easily. But having said that, maples for some reason are very prone to getting burnt. So this part of the tree, the leaves below are burnt, but the top part is not burnt. So it's quite variable. I visited a friend only yesterday, and he has had these great big awnings in his garden. I wish I'd taken a picture. And his plants are growing beautifully because they're in shade. So growing in shade has the benefit of making the plants less reliant on sunlight for photosynthesis, and therefore makes less demand on the watering needs of the plant. So much for growing in shade. I know everyone can't do it, but apparently you can have a parasol or take it by the side of the building so that it gets sun for part of the day. For instance, if I go to a building that we have here, you look at it, this is a building that we have here, and part of the building is in shade. So if you can keep the plants in shade, that would help. And then growing under trees. In my earlier video where I taught you how to grow plants in drought conditions, and plants which are grown under the trees can also benefit because it doesn't get the full force of the sun, so they make less demands on the watering needs. I'll go to another area where I have a lot of plants growing in shade, and you can see how well they're doing. As I said, our nursery is so large that I can't put shade netting everywhere. But then, how often do we get fierce sun like this? Maybe for 2 months of the year in a normal summer. So I am seriously considering about having more shade netting throughout the nursery. Now in this area, you see all these plants are growing in shade, and they seem to be doing extremely well, growing extremely well. And I have one area where we have a lot of these dwarf Alberta spruce, so they're all growing under the trees. And because they're growing under the trees, they are much greener and they require less water. So some of my bonsai are under trees, as you can see. and so it goes on. So shade is absolutely important. Now the other tip I gave you in the earlier video was to put the plants on the ground rather on the benches. If plants on the benches, they get so dry that they suffer, the leaves suffer, they get burnt and they need much more water. So these plants which I've kept on the grass here, we water them standing on the grass, and for some reason they tend to lose moisture much less, and therefore the trees stay greener. So growing plants on the grass is certainly a tip that I would pass on. It is a very useful tip, and it helps to save water, keeps the grass green, and the water percolates back into the ground, and you're not really wasting water. So placing plants on the lawn or on the ground also helps. Now the other topic that not many people mention is the timing of watering. If you go into any of these websites and search on some of your search engines, Google or whatever, and look up water saving tips. There are lots and lots of water saving tips that you can find on the internet. I don't need to go through them with you, but suffice it to say that the timing of the watering is very critical. Watering in the morning is very good, and apparently there is science behind it, in case you did not know. Watering in the morning has the benefit of giving water when the plant needs it. If you were to water at night, the plant is not using it. The plant uses the water because when the sun begins to shine, it stimulates the plant into the photosynthesis process. And the photosynthesis process makes the tree draw up water and makes the tree demand water. So early in the morning is good time. Late afternoon is good, but late in the evening, not so good unless the plant is really wilting, because you're approaching the night, and at night the water goes nowhere. The plant is not acting. There's no photosynthesis, so there's no point watering late in the evening or at night, unless, as I say, the plant is really wilting, you haven't watered during the day. So watering twice in the evening is useful. I'm now going to go on my computer and I will show you some little tips that I found. So here is the website that I stumbled across. It's called Water's Worth Saving. And this website has lots of tips on how to save water, save money, and save the environment. So if you go on some of these sites, I don't need to tell you about it, but there are all sorts of tips that you can discover about how to save water. And more topical, if you go to the gardening section, so the gardening tips, how to grow better plants more easily while saving water, that is also very useful. So there are all sorts of tips. So you can find out a lot about this from watering plants. And there's a thing about watering plants in the morning, or what I was telling you about. There's science behind it. Apparently, it says as soon as the sun comes up, the plants start using water. Something which I did not know before is this thing called the abscisic acid, ABA. Apparently, when the plant is partially dry or the roots get dry, it stimulates the roots to produce this acid called ABA, abscisic acid, which stimulates the leaves to close the stomata, that means the central part of the leaf stem, and therefore reduces water loss. I did not know that. So when the plant gets dry, it closes its stomata and it requires less water. So in drought conditions, that's what plants do. It may seem very complicated to those of you who are not into plant science, but I can see the logic, and I think it just takes a little bit of imagination to understand how plants behave. And it also goes into about the timing of watering, and also do look at the site. You'll learn quite a lot from it. At our nursery, we sell a lot of accessories for growing plants efficiently. And one of the accessories that we recommend people who grow indoor bonsai to buy are these under trays. We prefer to use the plastic under trays. These ones are made in Taiwan, some are made in Japan. These top quality ones like this, they come from Japan, can you see? Made in Japan. So they're proper trays for growing plants on. So we always recommend people to use under trays when they grow their indoor bonsai. So I know not everyone grows indoor bonsai, but you can just see why. So a big under tray like this. This is quite a large ficus. So you can put those large ficus on under trays like that, and you can put gravel on it, and by putting gravel on the tray, it stops the transpiration even more. Although you shouldn't fill it too much, because if you fill it too much, it won't have space to hold the water. So the gravel trays are useful for that purpose. When we grow bonsai, most bonsai hobbyists or enthusiasts are taught to keep their bonsai on benches, not often on the ground, but they keep them on benches and they don't need an under tray. So the water is just watered through the pots, and the excess water runs through the pot and goes into the ground. Although when it goes into the ground, it's not really wasted because it goes to supplement the groundwater. But in these dry conditions, if you were to put them on these, what we call gravel trays. It's a large plastic tray. This is about 70 centimeter long. It's a proper tray for holding water. And if you put the plants on the tray, then whatever water has been put on the plant will collect in the tray. It improves the humidity and no water is lost. So certainly during this drought situation, it pays to save water by doing that. This is another type of tray that we have on the nursery. These are what we call our plant carrying trays, and they are made of plastic, very flimsy plastic, but they don't have any holes in them. So if you use these plastic trays and put your bonsai in there, so whenever you water, the water is not wasted, it goes in there. Again, if you don't have access to things like that, what can you use? As most of you know, I'm a very frugal person. I don't like to waste anything. If you don't have any proper plant under trays, why don't you use these small trays? These are trays for carrying food on. So you can use that. You know, that will save some water. So you can put it on this. So that could be done. And what have I got here? This is real money saving tips. This is, look at it, chicken drumsticks in these great big packs. So these things are normally thrown in the dustbin. If you use these things, again, you can see that I'm very fond of using chicken drumsticks. So use these containers and you can put a bonsai in there, like so. And then it will collect the water, none of the water is wasted. This, of course, is a proper bonsai under tray, but you don't have to use that. So during the period of drought, you can use all these utensils. And what is this? This is one of those takeaway plastic cartons where you buy your takeaway food. So that is useful for a small bonsai. So there's so many little devices you can resort to just to save water. I wish I hadn't thrown away. I threw away a load of old aluminium saucepans. And old aluminium saucepans would be a useful thing to save water. I'm bringing you to our wisteria stock. By the way, I'm going to do a video about how to prune wisterias. Wisterias and willows are very thirsty trees. So we place all our wisteria in these large fiberglass trays. And these fiberglass trays are filled with water. So nothing is wasted. It is filled with water and the plants just stand in the water. So it makes less demands on the watering system because the water is stored in the trays, and also it provides humidity from the base and keeps the leaves moist. So this is how I grow all my wisterias at the height of summer, in these trays. A water saving tip which is worth passing on to you is that when you wash up or wash your hands, don't just let the tap run. Just use enough water for the operation that you have in mind to do. So supposing you wash a cup, wash it, then stop it. A lot of people let the tap run while they do, like brushing your teeth. They let the tap run and then they put the toothbrush underneath and then keep it running. So that is wasteful. But not only that, I collected that water in the saucepan. There's washing up liquid in it, and with that water I will then put it in a bucket, and I will use this bucket later on to water my bonsai with that. I know it's not fashionable anymore, but the good old washing up bowl has fallen into disuse. So if you keep a washing up bowl there and you do the operations of washing and collect the water in the washing up bowl, and then you can just pour it into the bucket to water your plants. Many people have asked me, what if you put washing up liquid in the water? Is that dangerous to the plants or will it kill the plants? No, it doesn't. The chemical is not that strong. And for the sake of saving water, I can safely recommend you use washing up liquid, which is in the water, to water your plants, especially plants in your ordinary flower beds. And bonsai, large bonsai certainly can be watered with water that you've used for washing up. So these are very useful little tips that I practice, and I hope you will practice as well. One final tip that I would give you, and this is something that I used to practice back in 1976. That was the last severe drought that we had in the UK, and I was living in Purley at that time. I hadn't purchased the nursery then. And during that drought, what I did was I used to fill the bath, stop the plug hole, and don't let it run down the bath plug. We used to fill it up, and when the water is filled, I used to put a hose pipe in the bath and siphon the water out and water the plants down below from the bath upstairs. So don't waste the water by running the water through the plug hole, but collect the water and then you can use that water, either scoop it into buckets or washing up bowls. But I used to just use a siphon with a hose pipe, half-inch hose pipe, and use it for watering the plants. I used to wait till the bath was about 6 or 8 inches full, maybe, bathing myself or showering myself and the kids. And that's how I used to save water. So during these difficult times, I hope you will do everything possible to save water, save the planet, and save your bonsai as well.